we'll talk a little bit about
Well, we're live now, so
what?
whatever we talk about, we're gonna have to talk about
Oh, hey,
as it comes up. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the 3-minute delay. We had a little bit of a technical glitch. Both Michael and I were starting the program at the same time, and his computer crapped out, and I wasn't ready to go live. I was busy unpacking from this week's gun range exploits.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week that it has, so I'm not surprised it's ending on an interesting note as well.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I wake up and all I know is the world turned into a Jerry Lee Lewis song this morning. So what was it like? What was it like living through a whole lot of shaking?
It wasn't. I've lived in California for many years. I lived just outside the epicenter of the Northridge earthquake, okay, which was a 7 on the Richter scale. And I've gone through 4s and 5s and 6s. For where I am in the Bronx, it was a 3.5. It wasn't even bad enough to knock paintings off of the walls. And everyone's freaking out in New York, like, oh my God, it was so horrible. Nothing fell over. You know, your paintings didn't fall off the walls. Nothing fell off of tables. They're freaking out because, oh my God, it just doesn't have, it's the worst thing. It's like everyone in California, everyone on the West Coast is looking at this and laughing because it was nothing. Literally nothing.
Well, you remember about 9 years ago up in Binghamton, we had that one earthquake?
Yeah, it was like a 3.
Yeah, and I remember sitting in my bedroom, and in the backyard of the house, I had a 20 by 40 underground swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked out the window, and I could see the water sloshing back and forth, and like somebody had a bunch of cannonballs in there without my knowing about it. I think what it is people see that number. My sister called. I spoke to her today. My brothers, they were texting me, and it was a 3.9 that they registered in Staten Island. And they're panicking because, you know, they're looking at the scale and they hear, well, a 4.1 is like cataclysmic, you know, in a major.
No, it's not.
I was like, I said, listen, you have to understand how the Richter scale works in order to determine the severity of what those numbers mean.
It's exponential to start off with.
Yeah, so every 0.1 is 10% worse, is 10 times greater than the one before it.
Right.
So when you start getting up there in the numbers, you start worrying when you're hitting like 5. That's
5.5.
5.5. Start saying, okay, which is the heaviest table in the house that I should hide under? Where are the doorways? Should I throw myself in the bathtub? With the 3.5, you're like, well, I don't have to stir my own coffee.
No, that's not even good enough to do that. It was nothing. Literally, while I was in bed and I stayed in bed. It was nothing. The people contacting me about it was more panic-inducing than the event. And everyone in California, I've slept through worse, far, far worse earthquake. And there's 2 types of earthquakes. There is the jarring clash kind of earthquake, which, trust me, gets your attention very quick. It's literally like a car crash. It's jarring. So, but those tend to be higher level. You know, that's your 6, your 7, your 8. That's you have no question you're in an earthquake when that happens. But this is what they call a rolling earthquake. It's very relaxing. And those are usually your 3s, your 4s, you don't even really notice them most of the time.
Oh, the only reason I turned on the news while this was going on, and to be quite honest, was I was trying to see how long it would take before some pundit blamed Donald Trump or global warming.
That's global warming. I guarantee you they're saying, oh my God, it's in New York State. It's upstate New York. It's got to be global warming causing this. Matter of fact, I did have someone today tell me that, well, it's since we're taking all the, we have to, I'm trying to see how they worded it. I want to word it again. We're taking the oil out of the ground, and because of that, the earth is reacting, and that's why we have all these earthquakes, which doesn't answer the question of, but we've always had earthquakes before we started taking oil out of the ground. The earth moves. It always has moved. And upstate New York, the East Coast have had earthquakes far bigger than this in its history, which has nothing to do with oil. And that's the thing they're trying to get to, is like, oh my God, it's because if all the oil is being depleted, the world would be hit with like magnitude 8 earthquakes on a regular basis. It's not climate change. It's not God's retribution. It's not even something that was significant. This was the hype that they've been pushing on all the mainstream media. 4.8, 4.8. Really, it was nothing. They don't even have what I think they had. One woman fell over. Like, that's the big news. A woman in her house fell over because she was in the epicenter and fell over off of her chair. Big deal.
Well,
I said panic over the damn eclipse.
They're panicking for it. The media wants people to panic, and politicians are going to use this. And I guarantee it's not the last time you're going to hear that someone's going to say, oh, it's because of oil, it's because of climate change, and the earth is reacting. And it's stupid. That's just political propaganda trying to use people's fear to gain advantage. It's normal. We've had, Frank, you were just talking about it. In Binghamton, upstate New York, what was it, 3-4 years, maybe 5 years ago, we had a 3. It's not unusual. It's not a big deal.
Well, actually, they've had quite a few shakeups here over the past few years. There's an earthquake not that long ago, just north of the Canadian border that we felt. Okay, that was in the last 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, but again, it's not unusual.
No,
2,
it's not.
It's not significant. And it has nothing to do with climate change. It has nothing to do with anything man-made.
Here's what it has to do. Tectonic plates move.
Exactly.
Okay. That's all it is. Tectonic
you know why people
plates
freak
move.
out when they see 4.8 and they're like, oh my God, it's devastating. That's a devastating number. If you happen to live in Haiti, or the equivalent type of hellhole as Haiti, where you're living in shacks, mud huts, essentially, then yes, it's going to destroy your little shack that has no supports and is just a bunch of metal stacked on top of itself.
A 4.7,
it's going to collapse.
4.8, which is what they recorded it at. I've seen reports for both. Is insignificant.
Yeah. Well, no, if you're in the third world, if you're in one of the shanty towns down in Brazil or in, I don't know, pick your third world nation, doesn't really matter. They would have their little shanty shacks fall over because they have no support.
Well, look at the earthquake that took place several years ago in Haiti.
Oh, the big one in 2010. Yeah.
Right. Now, you have Haiti and the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, doesn't that all share one body of land?
Yes.
Why was Haiti so horrendously devastated, but the Dominican Republic fared so well?
Because Haiti's a third world nation and Dominican Republic is a second world nation.
Right, exactly. You have building standards.
Yes.
In the Dominican Republic. You have a thriving economy in the Dominican Republic, at least by comparison. You've got some semblance of normalcy there where things are actually constructed of more than just, dried mud brick. So, yeah, of course you're going to have a much less standard of volatility in something that's more had, I don't know, resistant. Where so they take a little bit of pride in, hey, maybe you shouldn't build a house out of toothpicks.
You make a house out of bricks, you put it on a basic foundation on the East Coast. This isn't going to take down your house. You build it out of, a couple of loose pieces of metal. You have a shack. It's going to fall apart. I mean, but then again, the windstorm that we had 2 days ago with 60-mile-an-hour winds was going to devastate those same third world wind shacks, but no one was freaking out that the world was ending because New York State had a windstorm. I don't get the panic on it. I don't.
If it's a slow news day, people have to panic about something, and the media is always going to try and do everything they can to drum it up to make it even worse than what it is.
Well, it wasn't that slow news day. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just looking at the USGS report on it.
Yeah.
And even close to it. Okay. There's a report in Allentown that said it was light.
Of course it was.
Okay.
I'm telling you. People in California sleep through this stuff.
It was centered at just southwest of Gladstone in Jersey. Okay, and honestly, I think that Allentown reference is wrong. Okay, they said felt strong shaking and light damage.
Yeah, in other words, paintings fell off of the walls. That's about a 4 point. That's about a 4.5 right in there.
Well, that's quite a ways away, honestly. From where the earthquake was located, and even looking right around it, okay, they get light shaking and none. I'll show you what I'm looking at.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is a shake map.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and right here's the little yellow that I was talking about. Okay, where it's strong shaking and light damage.
Why are they isolated?
I think that's skewed.
Well, I think it has to be because, look, there's no one else around them that's reporting anything
exactly.
Close. Which, again, it makes no sense. We've got 50-year-old, 60, 70, 100-year-old buildings in New York City alone. And I'm not saying that they would collapse, but if this was any kind of danger, if it was actually something, you would have heard about bricks and roofs falling off and onto the public. It didn't happen. But this is a distraction from the news about what's happening to our economy, what's going on with the hostages being held by Hamas, the fact that we are imminently expecting an attack from Iran, either through their terrorist organizations or directly from Iran itself against us and Israel. That's expected as early as next week. The news media doesn't want to talk about that. You got the
intelligence report I got earlier today.
Yeah. That Iran is going to attack either through Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Houthis, but either through them or directly through like the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. They're going to attack America and or Israel. And considering our open border, where we've already had 69 known or suspected terrorists have entered the United States this year, we just hit the 4th month. So you're talking about, on average, more than 20 terrorists have been trying to get into America per month because our borders are that open. We know at least, at the very least, there was one known Hezbollah agent or terrorist who was caught in Texas trying to get to New York so he can make bombs. This was his statement to the federal government. And now we have Iran saying they're definitely going to strike us and they want to kill us like they have been promising to do since 1980. And news media doesn't want to talk about this. They want that weakened. They want that news story down so they can talk about something else. And suddenly the hype about, oh my God, it's an earthquake. Not like it's never happened before. I tell you, that's they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the squatters and the guns that they found. They don't want to talk about the trans report, the 15-year study on trans individuals that just came out. And the left, the progressives are losing their minds because the follow the science crowd doesn't want to follow the science as it's being reported. We can get into that in a little bit, but I think that's
count
why.
As science, wouldn't it, Michael?
What?
This would count as science, wouldn't it?
What, the earthquake? We're not supposed well, let's see. You say this is a screenshot here. We're not supposed to talk about this, but the eclipse, quote unquote, is actually a repair that's being made to the dome over. What is this flat earther stuff? What they're calling the path of the eclipse is actually a seam where two parts of the dome connect. Remember, folks, I'm reading the screen in case you're just listening to this. They have to reseal the seam because it's come loose over time. The alien overlords are doing this for our protection. Nothing to worry. What is this from?
Listen, I'm going to tell you right now. I find that to be so much more plausible than the 300,000 new jobs that the Biden administration allegedly added to the economy this quarter.
Oh, they did, but they all went to migrants.
Well,
they're part-time second jobs, that
they're not talking about the full-time jobs that were destroyed that never came back after the pandemic, that they've all been replaced by part-time jobs with no benefits.
Well, all I know is the Occupy Democrats page over on LinkedIn is saying Biden's killing it. Yeah, killing the country. That's what he's freaking killing.
Okay, so what you see on the screen right now, this is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So this is from the government itself. This is the A8. This is one of the most important charts. You want to understand unemployment, one of the most important things to keep an eye on. And what you see here is this number right here. Slack, this is part-time for economic reasons. People who are working part-time, slack because they can't find any other job because business is not doing well. That number is up. Another number that's very important and critical to look at. Part-time for non-economic reasons. That has also increased. So the economy and life in general has gotten so screwed up that people are going to part-time work. That's it. In addition to that, as was mentioned by Mike, it is true that, remember, the Biden administration gave a special designation to where were they from?
Migrants.
Yeah, but it was a specific country. It was one of the Middle Eastern countries. Oh, excuse me. It was the Palestinians and also South Americans. I believe it was the Venezuelans that he gave them special dispensation so that they could work in the United States, even though it's completely illegal for them to do that. Right. So that's approximately 100,000 jobs right there between those two groups within the last month. These numbers are, if you actually look into the numbers, you're seeing part-time jobs, you're seeing illegal aliens that have now been authorized to work that are working. You see all of the cracks. This economy is not good, but they desperately need. This is the number one the number one or two issue, depending on the poll, of the last 6 to 9 months that Joe Biden is being devastated on. He's losing on in every single poll. So they have to change people's impression of the economy. They have to make you believe that the economy is doing better than it is. They want people to forget that when you go to the grocery store and you are paying somewhere around 30, 40% more than you were in 2021. And they got to try and make people forget that. So they'll do anything, they'll count anything and everything to make you think the economy is better than it actually is.
And then you have this, like Dan mentioned, the repercussions of the $20 an hour wage hike in California.
Oh, yeah. And of course, Governor Newsom, who owns a restaurant, in his restaurant chain, four restaurants, he won't pay the workers. He's paying them $16 an hour, even though the law says it should be $20, but he's paying his people $16 because of a loophole in the law. It's crazy.
If you make your restaurant makes soap bread, you don't have to pay that.
Yeah, he because of his loophole in his law, his chain of restaurants don't have to pay their workers $20 an hour. But, you go to McDonald's, you have to. And McDonald's jacked up their prices by over 18% on April 1st, the second that they had to pay the higher wages. It's $18 for a Big Mac. $18. I'm old enough that I remember a Big Mac being like $1.25.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember it correctly.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s. It was like $1.25. Mm-hmm.
Has raised by 50% or more.
Yeah. Yes, James. James is like, wait a minute, a burger? Yes, $18. Yes, it is over $18. Yes, it is. It is over.
Newsom's doesn't meet the criteria because he doesn't have enough locations.
Yeah, he's got 4. He doesn't have 60. But it's his bill in his state that he is a governor. He's the one advocating for it. You would think he would do it. It's kind of like Bernie Sanders. I want to increase. I want to make a living wage. Everyone gets $25 an hour, except for the poll workers that were working for the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016. They were getting the minimum wage. So they were getting $7.25, and he's talking about the government should make sure it's $25 a living wage, $25 for everyone. He wouldn't even do it. How many times do we keep seeing these people are like, oh, you have to pay. If you own a business, you have to pay. If you own a mom and pop, you've got to pay out the ass for everything and drive up the prices and make the poor even more poor. But they, the rich, the ones in power making these laws, they've got loopholes so they don't have to do it. But no one wants to call them out on that.
No, they claim that they're doing all this for the workers and stuff, but then they turn around and do the exact opposite. I mean, they are literally a bunch of hypocrites.
They are absolutely.
And whenever you say that doing these wage hikes like they're doing is going to raise jobs, and they try to say, well, the CEO is making this or the CEO is making that, and they just take away from them. It doesn't work that way, folks.
One, it doesn't, and it shouldn't, because if you're a CEO, you put in the time, the effort, the money, the risk. I want a reward. It's like people want, like anyone who's trying to be ghetto fabulous. Does anyone really want to be poor No, everyone wants to be rich. What's the problem with that?
They love to point out McDonald's. Okay. They always harp on McDonald's. Well, first off, only 5% of McDonald's locations are owned by McDonald's Corporation, by the McDonald's Corporation.
Yeah.
Only 5% nationwide.
They're franchises.
Okay. Every other is owned independently. Okay. They are an independent franchise, and McDonald's has no say in the hiring practices, no say in the wage negotiations, nothing of those restaurants. That's all independently determined by the owner of the franchise.
Yeah,
And people keep pointing out, well, the CEO of McDonald's is making $17.4 million a year.
Good.
Okay, well, let's look at that. Okay, and we are going to ignore the fact that each franchise is independently owned.
Yeah, but
if we look at the number of franchises and the average number of employees per franchise and the average number of hours worked by employees, it ends up working out that it's like $97.50 that they could add to every person's paycheck per year if they completely took away his $17.4 million.
Well, it's because they forget about the fact that, McDonald's is a global company and that the CEO has to deal with international politics.
Mm-hmm.
He has to deal with multiple countries and the deals in multiple countries. He's planning out and negotiating for thousands, even in one state, we're talking about thousands, hundreds, if at the very least, hundreds of stores that he's making policy for, that he's making arrangements for shipping, supplies. He's got to get the raw materials. He's got to get that process, all the contracts that are going to make all of the products. They're not thinking about any of that. People think your CEO,
and they also
back
don't
and just
point
smoking
out
a cigar.
that the median wage of McDonald's, of the McDonald's Corporation itself, is like $107,000 a year.
Well, yeah, because it's a big corporation. And they forget about the fact that, McDonald's is part of everyone's IRA, everyone's portfolio. If you have a retirement fund, you own McDonald's, you want McDonald's to do okay because it's part of your retirement. If they're not doing well, your IRA isn't going to do well. It's the oversimplification of low information. The slogan sounds great. Don't think about it. Just go with the slogan.
And that's why people like Robert Reich and a lot of the pundits on the left like to use numbers because these big numbers, but they don't ever add any context to those numbers. Everybody thinks that people at McDonald's are only making minimum wage. No, the average starting wage of McDonald's across the United States is over $11 an hour. In a majority of locations, it's over $15 an hour.
Yeah, it's not a surprise to me. People don't think about that, but then they wonder, why does it cost $18 for a Big Mac? And they're like, I don't understand. They're just raking me over the coals. No, you're paying for the fry guy to get $15 an hour. The fry guy.
Well, and that's the thing and they don't realize the market's working exactly the way it's supposed to work. If government would keep its hands out of it, it's working. Okay. Because wages were naturally rising without the mandates in fast food because the demand for employees was causing the wages to rise.
Yeah, well, what are we seeing? And watch my words. This is a prediction. You're going to see massive 20% of all of the restaurant workers in California will get fired within the next 3 years. They will be replaced in many of these businesses by robots.
Yeah, they will
They're going to have automated note cashiers. The tellers are going to be gone. You're going to have a automated, just like a booth. You're going to pick your selection on the computer screen. Someone's going to make it. You're going to pay for it on that same computer screen through some electronic payment. You'll never see a human being. And then you'll have some robots just going to hand you your food off of a conveyor belt.
They've already got restaurants like that.
The future is here. When I drove back in from North Carolina from my mom's funeral up in New York, I swung through a McDonald's because I had no alternative. I was starving. I needed to get a bite to eat. Completely automated. The entire thing was automated. And I drove through, and, you know, it was weird because it was the first time in I don't know how long where my Big Mac actually looked like a Big Mac.
Well, the machine robot made it.
Doing a more efficient job at producing something that looked more like what was advertised than the people who were actually supposed to be assembling these things by hand. But me, I'm just not going to be happy until Big Mac is renamed the Media Mac because it's no longer big.
No, it's shrank. It's like everything else.
70 years ago.
This is what's happening because of California's minimum wage laws.
Well, mostly, I went to a McDonald's. They introduced the Grand Mac, and they made a big deal over the Grand Mac. Here for a limited time, the Grand Mac. It was the size the Big Mac used to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you know, what was it? 2 quarter pounders on a sesame seed bun, something like that. You notice they got rid of that commercial.
Cheese.
Bun.
Yeah, they got rid of that commercial. Why? Because it told you how much food you were getting, and they shrank the size of the food. So they stopped running that ad. So you don't know anymore that the food's less. Same thing. We've been seeing this. We've talked about this on this show before. We've seen for years now that literally since at least 2021, that the size of all of our packages, the first thing that they did, inflation's been happening. And in 2021, rather than raise the prices, they shrank all the goods. You got less everything.
Packages of ramen noodles used to be 4 ounces. They're 3 ounces. The cheapest, crappiest, if you can call it, food on the face of the planet. Ramen noodles are now 3-ounce packages, not even 4. Not even a 4-ounce package.
Yeah.
But they're the same price they were.
Yeah, which is inflation because you got less. You're paying
shrinkflation.
No, it's not. Michael, get it right. It's corporate greed.
Yeah. They like to say that because it sells. It's so they want people to buy these stupid slogans. Think for a second. This is why they don't want kids to have critical thinking. That's why they don't teach kids in schools anymore. That's why they need Grammarly.
Have you seen those Grammarly commercials that believe the eclipse is our alien overlords repairing the seam in the dome?
Yeah. This is why we have flat earthers have made a resurgence. It's because people aren't being taught. They're not being taught to think or to question. They're being taught to obey. And if someone says, well, it's shrinkflation, no, it's not. That's called inflation. And it's the way that they get to increase the price without you noticing it right away and then screaming bloody murder. It's a way to let politicians get away with causing the inflation without being called out for it immediately. And we're seeing that across this nation. And they love to, and as soon as people start noticing that, then we have all this extra emphasis put onto stupid things like there's an eclipse or there's an earthquake or a windstorm that are naturally occurring events that have been happening for I'll say for my lifetime, 56 years. These are not new things. They're not shocking or surprising. And people are losing their minds because suddenly it's on the news. Oh my, yeah, I saw that too. I saw that.
Yeah. Okay. This is Bitenomics. Okay, this is what's happened over the last 4 years.
Mhm.
Okay, when Biden took office, orange juice cost $2.99, $3. It now costs $4.29, an increase in price of 43.48%. Coffee $6.99, now up to $8.99, 28.64. Bread $1.49, now it's $1.99,
Wait a minute.
33.56.
Wait. Bread. I'm in New York City. It's $3.50 for bread.
Well, depends on what you buy.
No, any bread. Any bread is at least, it starts at $3.50 and goes up from there.
Okay,
And
right,
eggs,
which was one of the cheapest things you could buy.
yeah, and it's way off. And eggs,
Okay, up 50.
let
Okay,
me mention,
iceberg lettuce.
yeah, but let me mention about the eggs. For people who are looking at the egg price, let's also understand the price of eggs went up over $6 a dozen.
Yes.
That was in late 2022. Everyone stopped buying eggs. The price crashed. Then it came back up. This is on the way back up. It's been as high as 6. So 3, we're not even at the peak of what it's been in this last time. It's because people couldn't afford it anymore and the price crashed back down. Now it's going back up again. Go on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, I mean, all the way across the board, you see these rises. I mean, the average increase is 46.22%.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
they would, people like Robert Reich, like Elizabeth Warren, and many others will swear up to on everything that it's all because of corporate greed. I'm sorry, this is not all corporate greed. Every corporation in America is not doing this.
Well, they couldn't even if they wanted to. And all in concert, all in the same types of amounts. No, that's not it. The reason is, look at the inflation, look at the spending, look at the programs. The first thing that is important is energy. Every company needs energy, whether it's to run the farming equipment to get the food, or you want to process the food, or you want to deliver the food. Whatever it is you want to use, you start with energy. And the first thing the Biden administration did was end America's energy independence, which spiked on the same day, started spiking the cost of energy. Oil, gas, electricity all started spiking in February of 2021, which started the inflationary surge that we still are in. We're just off the peak, but we're up 50% from where we were February 2021. We just are down from the peak of August of 2022. It's still an increase. It's still spiking inflation.
Okay. And that list we just looked at was just food. Okay. And again, the pundits on the left like to try to say, well, it's because all the food companies are consolidating. There's only like 4 or 5 companies that are. No, it's not that. They are trying everything in their power to try and swing this as something that was brought on by corporations, and it's not.
It's again low information. People aren't asking questions. You're not supposed to think about this further than, but they told me. My politician promised. The same politicians that lied to you, the same news agencies, New York Times, how many reporters did they fire for making up stories? NBC, how many did they fire? Every one of these major news stations within the last 4 years have fired somewhere around, on average, about 3 to 6 of their reporters for making up stories and plagiarizing stories.
I've got
6 each.
I've got a question here.
Yeah.
Okay. Trump was supposed to be all for the corporations
Mhm.
and big business, and so are the Republicans and so forth.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Why wasn't this happening 4 years ago when he was in office? When the environment was supposedly suited for this?
Oh, yeah.
Why is it happening during an administration that is supposedly anti-corporate?
Well, they never want to address that. They never want to think about, wait a minute, if this guy was all bought out and all about corporate greed and helping the evil rich corporations, then why weren't they making profits like they are now? Why weren't the prices skyrocketing like they are now?
Well, to be fair, the K1 making profits. Everybody was making profits.
Well, yeah.
Profits were across the board, because what happens is when the economy is thriving and people have more money and prices are controlled by the market itself, by the supply and demand, people will buy more if they can afford more. So rather than making 50 cents on each item and selling one, you might make 40 cents on each item and sell two. So you're going to make more money when the economy is doing better. You're going to do in volume what people can only afford to do today is buy the staple. They can buy what they need in order to get by. They're not going to flourish. They're not going to buy more than they can afford. But when the economy is good and people have more disposable income, they're more likely to spend a little bit extra. Maybe a family, instead of having, hamburger 4 nights a week, might buy steak 1 night a week, might buy shrimp, might buy seafood, might buy something else, might go out to eat, might do something because they have a little bit more disposable income. When you have the income, people are going to spend it. So companies know that if they make things more affordable, they're going to sell more because people have more income in order to spread around. But when people don't have money and they're not buying as much, the companies still have the same amount of overhead, but they're not selling as much. So what are they forced to do? Repackage, minimize size, raise prices, because otherwise they're going to have to shut down, lay off, or close up. So now you're going to get less for more.
Okay. What I have up here on the screen is from Business Insider.
Yeah.
And it's a list of major U.S. companies slashing staff this year.
Yeah. It's a large list.
Okay, I'm actually trying to see. It's taking a little while to load.
Yeah, the numbers came out in January. This is the beginning of the year, right off of the fourth quarter. And they immediately started the year with having layoffs and downsizing their companies. And we saw this a large amount in the tech sector. You had Google, you had almost all the tech companies laid off somewhere between 5 to 15,000 of their employees. I think Google came in at 30,000 as of today. There's been over 30,000 of their employees that have been laid off and fired. And it's a cycle we are seeing that is continuing through industry and after industry after industry.
Now, here's another one. Okay. So we knew 2023 had significant layoffs. The 92% of employers are preparing for layoffs in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Amazon's laying off more people.
Yep.
Phantom Auto, U.S. Army plans to eliminate 24,000 positions.
Army's doing it for a different reason. Army's doing it because
Vice Media, IBM, BuzzFeed, Nike, Salesforce, Microsoft, Google, Sports Illustrated, Pixar, Disney, Universal Music Group, Amazon Twitch, BlackRock.
And the list keeps going.
Stellantis, Lands End, Unilever, Deadspin, Enthusiast Gaming, Fidelity, Fisker, the Container Store, Electronic Arts, Bumble, Sony PlayStation, Expedia, DCist, Now This News, Nickelodeon Noggin, Morgan Stanley, Sirius, Grammarly, Warren Music, Amazon Pharmacy, CNN This Morning Show, Snap, Zoom, Okta, IBM, Rivian, BuzzFeed, Nike, Vice Media, Toast, Cisco Systems, Continental, Instacart, Paramount Global, Snapchat, DocuSign, et cetera, et cetera,
The
et
full
cetera.
list is going to take the entire show because the list is longer than this. I've seen this report.
Okay.
It's even longer.
And that's what's projected in 2024. And this isn't everybody, folks.
Yeah, there's going to be even more than that.
That's just what's forecasted right now.
Well, a lot of those have actually happened already. Companies like Vice has already shrank. BuzzFeed, they're going out of business. They're trying to sell that business. There's a few others along in that line where they're just trying to sell off the business. They've already collapsed. Kotaku is another one that people may have heard about. But that's just these are the symptoms of a bad economy. This is Bidenomics. And this is what happens when you have inflationary spending. You have the government getting in the way of private business, of individual Americans being able to spend money the way they want to, as opposed to the government saying, we're going to take the money and spend it for you because the government thinks it's smarter than you. The government is never smarter than you. The government never spends money better than you do. We waste it on the green energy movement, constantly wasting money there, complete blow up. We've had in New York State, as an example, we had the drone testing sites. That was a home run, complete fail. We had Hollywood East Coast, where we had the movie studio, complete fail. I think that was sold for $1 last year. We had the hemp movement, hemp home run, going to pay off everything, complete fail. Legalizing drugs, fail, didn't bring in the money that they promised. They're always going to promise you that they have the next home run. They figured it out because government's smarter than you, and it always fails because government isn't smarter than you. In fact, government is dumber than you every single time. We can go through the economy. There's so many examples of it over and over and over again. So many examples of this, and it's just ridiculous. But it's
people
Orange Man
still
bad.
keep looking for government for the solution to their problems, and they don't realize you will find a better solution on your own than you will with government.
Yeah. Remember it was remember we spent $103 billion under the Obama shovel-ready jobs, over $103 billion. And that was to fix the roads, the bridges, the tunnels across America. Shovel-ready jobs. People would get hired and they'd get to work and America would be better. And then Biden spent another $300 billion on roads and bridges and tunnels to fix them in America. And then we saw the Francis T. Scott Bridge collapse. They failed. There's no other way to say it. The government failed. They promised you that they would spend, in that example, there's over $400 billion. It's not a small amount of money specifically to hire people to fix the roads and bridges. That was the direct promise. They said the money was going to go directly to just fixing the roads and bridges. And the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed. Not just, it isn't that it got hit, it's that it wasn't repaired from the last time it got hit, and it finally took it down. And we're finding out more problems about that as people continue to investigate. There's more issues connected to that than what we had initially thought. Government always fails. When government is doing anything that is not its absolute purpose, protecting the people and doing what individuals can't do for themselves. Whenever we step away from that, government always fails. Every time.
And why do you think that is?
What, that government fails?
Yes.
Because when you have a government so large, it is slow to react.
No.
Well, no, that's one of the reasons is
No.
it can't react fast enough. It doesn't
No.
think enough.
No.
What?
It's designed to fail. It's
Oh.
designed to fail. No, you know
it
why?
has to fail
You
in
know why
order
it's
to
designed
stay
to fail?
relevant.
Because if it succeeded, we wouldn't need them.
I understand that line of thinking, which I look at more individually.
And
with
the other
politicians.
reason why it fails all the time is because government is people. People
Well,
who
yes.
are appointed and selected and not there because they're qualified. And the other reason it fails is because government is corrupt.
Yes, very much. The corruption is
Have a
one of the worst
$1
parts.
billion bridge, take 5 years to build it, go back 20 years later, 999 million is missing, and $1 million was spent on the signs explaining why the bridge isn't finished yet.
Yeah,
That's
money
government.
disappears. Yeah.
Why does government fail? Ask Bill de Blasio. Ask Bill de Blasio where $1 billion that his wife was in charge of went.
Well, you're not even supposed to talk about that because it's obviously racist to ask her to be accountable.
I'm asking him to be accountable. I could ask him all day long.
Yeah, but you won't get an answer because they never give answers. It's kind of like when we talk about the squatters. That's another issue that they don't want to talk about because it's connected to illegal immigration.
Right. What I want to know is who was it that sat there and said, hey, you know what? We have people that if they break into your house, we have to make them leave. And somebody else said, no, we have to make it easy for them to stay. I want to know who are the people who are behind these original squatting laws that gives these people the ability to stay in somebody else's house without being dragged out by the lower jaw and a C-clamp, taken out into the yard and beaten. What makes anybody think that this should be allowed? That they would write laws that say, homeowner, I'm sorry, you have no rights. You have to go to court to have this person who broke it into your ring. Oh, now if they break it into the house and I'm there, I'm allowed to do what I need to do to get rid of them. But if I happen to be at work or on vacation and somebody breaks into my house and I come home and they're there, I'm powerless to get rid of them. Who was it that wrote these laws that made that possible?
The laws were written, obviously, to be compassionate, but they were written to be abused. And they have been abused, which is something that's been highlighted, especially by the one illegal immigrant who was on TikTok, who then got arrested and is being deported because he's a criminal.
He ain't going nowhere.
Huh?
He ain't going nowhere.
He'll get tell you what
he's deported. Remember, deportation is different than being physically removed. Why do you always hear these reports? Oh, this illegal who was deported 11 times. Well, how was he deported 11 times? Did he keep coming back? No, he never left.
I understand.
He did.
Judge who says, okay, you're deported. Okay, and then he walks out of the friggin' courtroom.
Right, but this guy, I think,
should mean you're placed on a helicopter, brought over the border, and dropped out.
While I don't disagree with you,
altitude dependent upon crime.
While I don't disagree with you, I think this guy, because he had his face plastered all over TikTok, is actually going to be removed from the country.
He ain't going nowhere.
But, well, no, because his wife's already been pleading for mercy to the progressives who are bleeding hearts and going, we can't separate him from his child and his wife.
Oh, and the wife and the kid and everybody else who came across with him.
Yeah. To let them all go.
Tape them
And deport them all. I got no problem.
Together in one big giant clump, stick them inside of one of them big floating balls that you see them at ski resorts, and just push them right into the water and just let the wind carry them.
I know.
Okay. We're talking about illegals.
Yeah.
Again.
And stuff. Did you know the Biden administration that Bill Haggerty put forth an amendment that would stop Biden admin from using taxpayer dollars to charter flights for hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants being flown from their country to settle directly in the United States.
Yeah, there's been a couple of bills and amendments about that since 2022. When we first found out that Biden was trying to get the kids, remember we had in 2021, the kids who were in the cages overflowing. You had Ted Cruz went down. They wouldn't let him in, but he was videotaping with his camera, showing the kids in the cages so that the Biden administration could get away from that. One, they blocked all of the news media from being able to go into those centers to actually see what's going on with the kids. And then they started a program of, at midnight, picking up all these kids and flying them in private chartered jets from the United States government, from Texas, and dropping off the kids in places all around America, in particular in Tennessee. Was the first flight that we learned about. And the second one was in New York City. Yeah. And since we found out about that, there have been several bills and amendments trying to stop the federal government from paying for these flights. There are hundreds of them. And the Democrats keep shooting it down.
Yeah. And the result is this.
Yeah. We've never had this kind of illegal immigration. We've never had this. This is insane. And part of the problem I have with this is it's morphing into additional crimes. These illegal aliens are so incentivized to break the law and so rewarded for breaking the law that the law no longer has any impact, which is why we had that one guy saying that he wants them to go in and squat in people's houses, again, violating people's property, violating the Constitution, taking advantage of the laws and the loopholes created by progressives and Democrats. And here's one of and it gets so bad that we suddenly get, let me show you. Because they know they can get away with this. Nope, I'm hitting the wrong one. There it is. Let me show you guys. Bingo. This is from April 4th, yesterday, 6:47 p.m. Last night, this was reported. Gun-toting migrants. There was a gang of 8 Venezuelan illegal aliens in the Bronx. They all entered the United States through various criminal activities. They've been arrested. And these criminals, this is the part that I emphasize from the story, all 5 of the ones that they had caught, there's 8 in total, but all 5 ditched their processing appointments. They were given through the Biden-Harris open border system. They were given a ticket to actually appear to review their claim of asylum and were allowed to come into America. Not one of them actually showed up for the meeting. They instead went into the Bronx, broke into a house, took the house over and terrorized the landlord, the owner of the building, so that he wouldn't dare try and stop them as they ran a drug and gun dealing operation out of that house, terrorizing the neighbors, the landlord, and the community. A laundry list of crimes, including loaded firearms, burglary, assault, and attempted murder. They were allowed to do this for months upon months upon months. And yet, even with that being said, even with all of those crimes from illegal aliens from Venezuela, the number one spot that we're getting, well, actually, number two spot that we're getting all these illegal aliens from, you have Eric Adams, Kathy Hochul, and the federal government all saying, keep the border open. This is what the illegal aliens are doing. They're squatting. They're creating drug gangs. They're creating gun gangs. They're creating crime. They're attacking people. They're trying to kill American citizens. And their answer is, but keep the border open, because there is no such thing as a border. Let them in. And you're telling them they're going to be rewarded. They broke the law. We gave them a ticket to show up and prove that they're here on asylum. And they didn't care. They just wanted to get across the border so they could start committing their crimes. And they were rewarded. They were allowed to come across the border. They had been released from previous arrests so that they could create this cartel in the Bronx to attack other American citizens. And it's happening, I guarantee you. We know it's happening in Chicago. It's happening in Boston. It's happening in LA. It's happening out, not just in the Bronx, but throughout all of New York State. We are seeing this happen, and no one wants to talk about it. That story isn't national news. It should be. It's not national news. Instead, they wanted to talk about an earthquake. I'm more concerned about the Venezuelan crime gang that's out there dealing drugs to kids and trying to kill American citizens as they capture territory. That's the national news I want to talk about. That's the immigration story I want to talk about. And Biden, because he's losing on immigration, because Democrats will not win, the media is fortifying their election chances and saying, we'll talk about anything else. We will hype up any other news rather than tell the public, oh, yeah, illegal immigration is failing and costing people lives. I mean, that's the way I see it. Do you disagree?
No.
How about you, Frank?
I'm just getting sick and tired of being lectured about why we have to have an open border from a bunch of people that live behind gated communities and armed guards. I'm getting sick and tired of seeing American people getting killed at the hands of animals. Yes, animals. Animals. Worse than animals. Animals actually, it's the bad word to use to call some of these people animals. Because animals are not malicious. You know, you might see a lion in the jungle eating a baby deer and say, oh my God, how horrible. Well, you know, it's not being done out of malice. It's being done out of survival. These people are doing shit out of malice. We have enough really crappy Americans in this country to deal with. We don't need to be importing more animals, savages from around the world that are being deliberately sent here by their parent nations because they want to get rid of their problems. So they export them to here so they can become our problems. And then what do we wind up doing? Letting them into the country, give them their amnesty, give them a right to vote, where we deny our own American citizens the right to vote if you got a DUI conviction. We have no idea what these people did in their own countries. But we know the first act that they did while coming to America was break our law. They break our laws. Their number one act of setting foot into this country is they're already breaking the law, and we reward them. Why do we reward them? Because they have a diminishing voting pool. And they're doing everything they can to bolster their voting pool. And to hell with the Americans that suffer. To hell with the Americans that die. To hell with everybody that gets murdered on behalf of this. To hell with everybody who has to deal with the drug problem, the crime problem, and all the rest of it. Oh, your house got squatted by 35 illegals? Too bad. You got to deal with it. Well, how am I supposed to deal with it when the courts don't work on my side? Well, that's because they're not designed to work on your side. Why? Because government is corrupt. It is corrupt. It's designed.
And here's what they're trying to do in New York City. And New York City just got spanked about it. Okay. New York City has a law or had a law that allowed non-citizens to vote in local elections.
Yeah.
If you think they're going to limit their voting to a local election, guess again, because the ballots aren't wrote for just local elections.
Well, I don't care if it's local or federal. They don't have a right to vote.
Right.
They're not an American citizen. They don't get to vote, period. I don't care if it's local.
And then people say, oh, well, they live in the community. The laws that get passed in that community, you know, they're affected by it too. They wouldn't be affected if they didn't come here.
If they didn't break the law to be here.
Where they were. If they came here legally, had a legal Social Security number, paid taxes like any other American citizen, then yes, they would have a right to vote because they would be Americans. But they're not Americans. They have no right to vote in our elections. Oh, well, it affects them disproportionately. Go home. Go home. Because you know what I'm fed up? You know, I'm going to tell you right now, I get fed up. I drive by choice. Now, this is by choice. I drive a 35-year-old pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Because I'm not spending $100,000 on a new pickup truck that I'm going to take into the woods up a dirt road, carrying all my guns and shit just so I can go to the range for the day. I'm not doing it. I'm not spending that kind of money for it. I drive a 35-year-old pickup truck. But I got to stop and get gas every now and then, or I stop and get cigarettes. I go to the store, whatever it is. And I see one of these big, beautiful 2023 quad cab, 4-wheel drive, 350, 3500s with this series, that series, and everything else. And 9 people pile out of it that you know. I don't even want to say why, but you know that not a single one of them speaks English. Because they don't. They don't speak English. And you go into the store and they have no clue how to operate an ATM machine, no clue how to operate a credit card because this is all foreign to them. This is all foreign to them. They don't know how to operate the gas pumps. They don't know how to operate anything. And say, well, how the hell are these people driving around in a $130,000 friggin' truck? You know that license plate isn't on that car legitimately. You know that it's not registered to somebody legally. You know that it's not insured legally. You know that nobody in that vehicle's got a goddamn driver's license. I'm driving around in a 35-year-old truck. And you get a bunch of people here who obviously are illegal because there is an influx of it where we are. They're being sent here. We have hotel chains up and down our major highway systems over here. I have friends that come down and visit, right? Now, we got cats in the house. They can't stay here. We got a couple of friends because they're allergic to cats. They can't be in the house for too long. So what do they try to do? They try and get a hotel local to us. They are told they can't get a hotel room because the hotels are being booked up by the federal government to house illegals.
Yeah.
In Charlotte, North Carolina.
Because they got to take care of the overflow coming out of New York, so that New York can win.
You drive by these places and there's bus loads getting dumped every other freaking day. And then what is in the parking lot? Brand new trucks, brand new cars. Everybody's got everything brand new. And you say, how? How the hell is this possible? My neighbor over here's got 2 kids, can't afford to feed them. Can't afford to feed him because he's got to work 2 goddamn part-time jobs because the full-time job that he had to let him go because they can't keep that open. Okay, what I don't understand. I don't understand it. And then to add insult to injury, I go over to friggin' Sam's Club because I gotta buy shit in bulk. You know, I go over to Sam's Club. I get, 10 pails of cat litter and a big thing of toilet paper and this and that, whatever the hell else I got to buy in bulk because I got to try and save $1. And I got to stand there online. I got to check my own shit out at the register with their stupid little gun because they don't have nobody working at a cash register to actually validate what I'm buying. Then I got to go through their system, do all of their shit, and then I got to get on another friggin' line with 30 other people standing there so they can get out of the goddamn store. And what's at the end of that line? You got two people standing there with little laser guns. They want to check your receipt, to look in your cart to make sure that you paid for what's in your cart. And the people that are there that are guarding the border of Sam's Club in the parking lot don't speak English. They had no problem crossing our border at some point or another and completely ignoring whatever laws. But now this is the person who's going to police whether or not I'm a fucking thief leaving Sam's Club, that I didn't pay for a gallon of milk or a dozen eggs. With the $400 I just spent, I'm going to try and sneak a pack of batteries out. I'm going to sneak a battery and they're going to check all my shit. But they gave no single evidence of crossing our border, not a single concern for what we have to deal with in America, or what they're supposed to do to come and live in the greatest country on earth. They cross our border with impunity, but we have to pay the price for it.
Yeah.
Our families pay the higher taxes. Our families pay a higher price on goods and services. Our families have to pay higher insurance prices because we give everybody free health care who comes over here. We have to pay higher property taxes because 30% of the kids enrolled in our schools were not born here and don't speak English and need remedial classes so they can get by. And then we pay the price for it. And then when we get pissed off about it and say enough is enough, the American family right now is paying $12,000 a year more this year in groceries than what they did 3 years ago.
Yes.
And when we get mad about it and we get upset about it, we're racists, we're bigots, we're pieces of shit, we've got no heart, we've got no this. No, we have no friggin' money. We have no money.
And we're pro-corporation.
And what's worse is there's one more thing that we're not going to have soon. We're not going to have a friggin' country. We're not going to have a country. Because when the people that come here vote to live under the same standards as the country they came from, those rules, those laws, those will be instituted here. And before you know it, the first-rate country that we are is going to be a third-world country because the Democrats played long ball and said, one day we're going to need millions of new voters when we've squandered the American piggy bank. And we're going to need new voters to replace the people that got pissed off at us now. So what did they do? Take the friggin' fence down, open the gate, ignore the laws, and now send planes to Venezuela by the 100 and load them up. Load them up. Sending people up here. Why are we pissed?
I've got the Roomba that we need to send all these illegals for free.
I was quiet for the first half of the show. Yeah, those would work. Those would work. And they're multi-directional.
Yeah. They clean 50 square yards real quick.
True enough.
Crying out loud. Well, at least there was one good thing that I found today in the news.
What's that?
I don't know if you guys heard of Anna C. Reyes. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce her name. Reyes, I'm going to say. She's a brand new federal judge appointed by the Biden administration and approved by Congress. This is a Biden judge. Let me see if I can't share this article with you guys because I'm not really that great with the whole sharing thing here. Share screen. Yes, why do we have to keep showing this? Well, apparently, this brand newly minted judge is a little bit upset because you've got was it Peter Navarro, the guy from the Trump campaign, that is now sitting in jail in contempt of Congress for what they sentenced him to, like 6 months or something like that.
Yeah,
8 months or everything. This is this judge, newly appointed. She is screaming up in arms. Why the hell have you not put Hunter Biden in jail? Why have you not every subpoena that's been ignored by every single department head in the Obama administration? Well, what's the friggin' difference? Obama Biden administration, they've all been ignored. And this judge is finally calling them out on it. Why are you allowing these people to violate subpoenas and let them get away with it when you have somebody who was willing to testify in Navarro? Willing to testify, but you didn't like the circumstances he wanted to present it to. So you put him in jail for contempt, but the rest of the Democrats are allowed to go free. So I don't know. I didn't see Reyes's confirmation hearings. I didn't watch it, unlike that other idiot the other day who couldn't identify what an assault weapon was.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Gus. Gus is the man, but we'll talk about him in a second. Go ahead.
But I didn't see this woman's confirmation hearings, but at least judging by what she has said in this article is that she says, I think it's quite rich that you guys pursue criminal investigations and put people in jail for not showing up. But then the direct current executive branch employees take the same approach, that you're all making a bunch of arguments that you would never accept from any other litigant. And goes on to say how it's absolutely ridiculous and rich that they're allowing, people from the Trump campaign to be lambasted and put in prison over bullshit, while allowing Hunter Biden to again walk around with impunity and have all these other, Biden people just ignore subpoenas, department heads ignoring subpoenas from select committees. About, we need this documentation, that documentation, and they completely ignore us. And the one that she cites as being the greatest culprit of all is our attorney general. It's not our attorney general, our, what's that short little bald guy who's,
which one? You talking about Mayorkas?
Yeah, Mayorkas, that's him, yeah.
No, he's the secretary for the Department of Home.
Yeah. That he's completely allowed to ignore everything that every oversight committee asks him of. He's allowed to ignore them completely and never fulfill a single, not request, but demand for information that our representatives are legally entitled to get.
Yeah. But if he got that, then it would show that Biden is a failure, that the Biden-Harris administration has failed. And again, they have to protect them to get through the next election. This is called fortifying.
You use the word fail in the wrong context. If we get the documentation, it shows they're successful. Because everything they're doing is to plan. They're being very successful with their plan.
I understand. We've gone back and forth on that.
Right. Securing the border and not getting it done is failing it. Not securing the border while saying you're securing the border because you don't want to secure the border is a success.
From a point of view, I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Deliberate.
But it's amazing. Look at all these different avenues that we come back to the same thing. Violations of law, of Constitution, of the structure of our government, the disrespect of the American people and our rights. It all keeps coming back to these same core values that progressives have. Because progressives, look at BLM, look at the Democratic Socialists of America, look at the Progressive Leaders of America, Antifa, every autonomous zone in America today, and every autonomous zone that has existed in America since 2015. Every single one of these groups have something in common. None of them want to recognize the Constitution. They don't want to recognize the laws of the land. They want to destroy what we have. They want to, what did Obama say? Transform America.
Fundamentally transform America.
That's right. And they don't want to tell you what they want to transform into.
Fundamental transformation of America.
Yeah. Without telling you what's the transformation into. No, you're supposed to find that out afterwards. It's kind of like what Pelosi said. We have to pass it to find out what's in it. You have to transform America to find out what it transformed into. Because if you knew, you would never do it in the first place. But they're trying to strong arm us into this, and they're trying to destroy the foundation of our nation, in to get this outcome. Because they know if they actually told us the truth, no one would agree with them.
That's why I don't understand the American people. What the hell is wrong with at least 40% of the people in this country? What is wrong with these people? That you will sit there and listen to a politician who will tell you, I'm not going to tell you what we're going to do. You're just going to have to trust us. And they believe it.
Well,
And they go, okay, all right, I'll go with the lever. Freaking idiots.
Here's a discussion that I got into yesterday.
What's that, Mike?
Okay. I'm getting ready to post it. Hold on a second.
You got to learn how to talk while you're doing that, Mike.
Yep. So here's a discussion. Okay. Robert Reich posted this. In 2025, top 1% will get tax cut of more than 60, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So David Kirschnick said, create a wealth tax, only fair. And I replied to him that a wealth tax would require a constitutional amendment. Do you really think 2/3 of the state legislatures would support passage of such an amendment? Next, what is considered wealth? Savings, investments, retirement accounts, property. If you tax the wealth of some, you must tax the wealth of all. Are you prepared to start paying taxes on growth of your retirement fund? Or if you own a house, the increase in the property value of your home?
They've tried that.
What's that?
They tried that before.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been ruled unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Okay. Barbara Schatz tried to claim that because Elizabeth Warren is a law professor, she has read the Constitution, and a wealth tax is not unconstitutional, nor would it require a constitutional amendment.
Authority bias. Okay.
Okay. And that the Warren's wealth tax will be only kick in after you have a wealth of over $50 million.
First of all, authority bias. She's talking about authority. See, she's elected, so she must know something. No, you don't get an IQ test to become elected to anything. If we did, then Biden wouldn't be in office right now because he's losing brain cells by the day. The man is, it's not trying to insult him. He is. Go ahead.
So, Ms. Schatz tried to bring up two cases in her arguments, Supreme Court cases. The first one she brought up was the Pollock case. And for those of you that don't know what the Pollock case is, the Pollock case is actually the case that declared that income taxes were unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's what eventually led that actually direct taxes on income and on property were unconstitutional. Okay. So she tried to claim that the Pollock tax actually sets the stage for the taxation of wealth. And when I called her out and said the Pollock case was actually not that, she said, well, it was actually overturned. And I said, no, it was superseded by the 16th Amendment. And the 16th Amendment limited it to income only, not to property. And then she tried to bring up, the Hylton case, which was a federal tax on carriages. And the Hylton case originally did determine that it was constitutional for the federal government to tax carriages. However, the Pollock case overturned the Hylton case and said that direct taxes were unconstitutional.
Hang on, Mike. Hang on. So she She went backwards in time
Yes.
to a case because you disproved the case she pointed to. She
Mhm.
went backwards in time to a case before there and said, okay, well, the one that had precedent first, which was then corrected by the case she put up, which you correctly said doesn't apply and is incorrect. She thinks that by going even further into time, it makes no sense. She's
Exactly.
going exactly the opposite way. She's supposed to go, here's a newer case with a newer decision that proves you wrong. Not here's an older case that confirms that you're right.
Yeah.
Oh God, she's so stupid.
Okay. And this
He's a voter.
is why we need people to learn the Constitution. This is the exact reason. Okay. And she started off trying to argue from an authoritarian point or authoritarian bias
Mm-hmm.
by bringing up Elizabeth Warren and her law degree, which
Doesn't mean anything.
she was a law professor, but it was not in constitutional law. It was in bankruptcy law.
Again, one, it's authority bias. Two, it's misplaced because not her expertise. Three, that does not invalidate any critique that can be made of her decisions because she's still fallible. And
Right.
until it goes in front of the Supreme Court, doesn't mean that she's right.
Okay.
God.
And then when I actually show her the Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, which lays out Congress's power to tax and that the taxes must be apportioned amongst the many states, and then point out that under Articles 1, Section 8, Clause 1, that all taxes must be uniform across the many states, and the 16th Amendment, which limited Congress's power to levy direct taxes on American citizens to income and income only, she still tried to argue that a wealth tax was constitutional when there is no way you can justify a wealth tax as being constitutional reading any part of the Constitution.
But see, you didn't understand, Mike. She has a feeling, and it's a feeling she was given from Elizabeth Warren and the progressive left. They had a feeling and they gave it to her, and she's now trying to give you that same feeling. So you have to agree because her feeling it's her truth.
Well, and
and
then
her
on top
truth
of
is
this,
more important than the truth.
on top of this, she tried to say, well, we pay property taxes. I said, we
The
do not
state.
pay a federal property tax.
Yeah.
We pay local property taxes.
Yeah.
Those are allowable.
Local and state.
Federal property taxes are not. And that's when she tried to do using those arguments with me, with Pollock and Halton.
Yeah. Because they don't expect anyone to actually stand up and critically consider what they're saying. You're supposed to be silent and agree and nod your head and say, I'm sorry, I actually brought that up. No. And when you challenge them, they don't have an answer because
No,
they
they
didn't
don't.
think it through.
And as
They
you
were
can
told
see,
this is the answer.
after I left my last comment, which detailed out exactly what Halton said, exactly what Pollock said, exactly what the 16th Amendment says, she never responded again.
Because she
no longer had an argument.
Well, she ran out of bullet points to point to.
Mm-hmm.
The left they didn't expect anyone to keep having that argument. So she has nothing to copy. And her feeling has been deflated. And that's the problem. Look, it's not that, and I want people to understand, it's not that I think I'm perfect or that anyone here is perfect. It's not that you can't question or say, you got it wrong. Okay, fine. If you tell me that your argument is, because I feel like that, because my truth says that, kiss my ass. No, that's not an answer.
And honestly, if she would have brought up more arguments that were legitimate, which I showed her how her thinking was flawed in Pollock and in Hylton. If she would have brought up more cases or whatever, I would have looked into them. And if I would have been proven wrong, then I would have admitted it. But when I kept finding that her thinking was wrong and pointed that out, she no longer argued. She didn't have a basis to stand on.
Because she didn't expect anyone to question her. So, I have a source. Yeah, but it's an incorrect source. It's provably incorrect. The decision was overturned, which she doesn't even think about. Which should have been the first thing she should have realized is when she looked at the case in the first place, this has been overturned. This is
not only that,
no longer
she didn't
case
even
law
look into
appropriate.
the case itself. Because in that ruling, in the Hylton ruling that she brought up, it actually references that you cannot tax property directly, i.e., you can't tax land. You can tax carriages because they were used to make income and they were considered an expense in making income. And that's how they justified the tax on carriages. Okay.
Joanna.
But that would have been expanded to wealth, then it would have been a direct tax and not an indirect tax. And that's how they justified it.
Joanna, ask. Don't you never have to ask us, can you ask the question? Ask the question. Go right ahead and ask it. Whatever it is you want to ask, go right ahead.
Yes, because of the delay between when we see your comments and when you ask that, it takes a long time for you to actually finally get the answer to ask your question.
Yeah. Plus, we're also very long-winded and annoying.
We are.
Yeah. There's a good amount of that in there too.
Excuse me for just a second. I will be right back.
Okay.
All right. So while we're waiting for Joanna to ask a question, quick story. I had an online auction this week.
Did you? Okay.
I bought some guns.
Shocking.
Unbelievable that I would buy some guns. Well, I think you'd find this funny. I bought a bolt action rifle last week, took it to the range, and it didn't work. Had a broken firing pin. It's a 100-year-old rifle. I go and I buy a 1961 Glenfield Marlin rifle on this auction online, and I'm looking at the rifle, and it's a beautiful looking rifle. It's never been shot. This thing is gorgeous. And I did a little research on it because I said something doesn't look right about the rifle. Well, it turns out in 1961, Marlin ran out of wood stocks for the Model 60 rifle. And they used 10 stocks from the Model 25 rifle, modified them slightly to fix the last 10 rifles and Model 60 that went out the door. Of those 10, they all had some sort of animal engraving on them and everything. One of them had a squirrel engraved on it.
You got it.
Guess who bought it at an online auction? I went and did the research on it, and I found somebody who has a gopher one. Well, there were 4 gopher engraved stocks, but only 1 squirrel. 13 years ago, the gophers were going for over $1,200 for this rifle. There was 4 of them. I have the 1 squirrel. I paid $125 for it.
I think you'll make a profit. You'll make a profit. Yeah.
No, that's going to go right. It's going to go right into the rifle vault. I'm going to do a review of it when it gets in next week. I'm going to do a review of it, and it's going to get cleaned, oiled, polished up, and it's going to get put away. That's going to be one of those. I only own a couple of unicorn guns, but this one is probably going to be one of the more rare ones. I have a gun over here that I can't show you. I can show you. It's sitting on the rack over there. That was fired by Dwight David Eisenhower while he was president of the United States.
Oh,
I can't
nice.
show it on the camera because they'll shut the show down.
Yeah.
But figured while we were waiting for that thing, I just throw out that interesting little anecdote because we, waiting for questions and waiting for Marshall to show back in.
No
now,
problem.
Joanna, do all three of you have a driver's license?
Yeah.
No.
Well, what's that? So 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
2 out of 3 ain't bad, but I've never had a license in my life. Yes, I have ridden motorcycles for many, many years, driven cars, many years. Never had a license in my life. Only time I was ever asked for a license was the day I was laying on the street after I got hit by a car on my motorcycle with a broken leg. Kind of too late. It really wasn't important. But that was the only time I've ever been asked. Why? But my question back, Joanne, why? You're asking about driver's licenses. I've had ID, but never a driver's license. Why are you? What's that connected to?
Now, if you're going to ask whether or not we approve of the fact that we have to have a driver's license in order to operate a motor vehicle, that's an entirely different kind of question.
Well, yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that go with that. I'm not saying I advocate necessarily for people to not have a license, but that's a long conversation. It goes into a whole bunch of things. But
well, constitutionally speaking, you have a right to free travel. Not free as in I'm not paying for gas, I'm not paying for my plane ticket, but you have a right to move about the country unmolested, so to speak. You're allowed to go wherever you want to go, public property, public roads, you go wherever you want to go. You're not supposed to have to, be dictated to anybody where or when you can go or anything else. Now, however, if there are roads and there are tolls, you're obligated to pay them because those are not, there's no right at those. There's no right to that because these are services that municipalities have provided through taxpayer funding, and those are maintenance fees and fees for paying for.
Well, that's what they claim that they are.
Yeah, that's what they claim. That's what they claim. Well, the Verrazano Bridge was supposed to eliminate the toll after it was paid for, and then there was just supposed to be a nominal fee for maintenance. Not supposed to be where it had gotten to, but you do not have a right to operate a motor vehicle.
Correct. True.
On public roads. Now, however, if you own your own land,
you can do whatever you want on your land.
Do whatever the hell you want to do on it until they figure out a way how to tell you that you need a permit, because you can't build something on your own land without having somebody else's approval, because it has to meet a certain building code or a certain minimal standard, or it has to meet environmental impacts or anything else like that, which I have got a lot of problems with. I have
some problem with it.
At some point, I'm like, listen, if I want to build a deck on my house, leave me alone.
Yeah.
I don't.
As long as it's structurally sound.
Right. If you want to come and inspect it and give me, say, hey, you could have did this a little better, you should do it that way, or whatever the case may be, fine. But you shouldn't be the one to give me permit, because permit is from the word permission. I don't like having to ask anyone's permission to do with my property what I would like to do with my property, with my time, my money, my skill, my labor, my effort. I shouldn't have to ask somebody. Like, I give you, for instance, Joanna, one of the things that pisses me the hell off living in upstate New York is that I was a general contractor for 20 years, and half the time I'd have to go get a freaking permit for some job that I was doing that shouldn't, or even really require to have a permit done for somebody. It got to the point where they wanted to issue you a permit for having your roof shingled.
Yeah.
I'm not making any structural changes to a roof. I'm re-shingle it, stripping it off, putting new shingles on it. Why do I need? Well, we have to make sure that it's done right. Well, if it's not done right, that's between me and the homeowner. If there's a leak, I take care of it, or I get sued. It has nothing to do with the county, the state, or any municipality. Stay the hell out of my business. No, they want the money. And then you turn around and go, oh, no, we're not charging you a permit fee. We're not charging you a permit fee. Then why is it? Because when I file for the permit, you take a copy of it and you send it down the hallway to the tax assessor's office. So a month after the roof goes on, the tax assessor comes by and goes, oh, I noticed you put a $20,000 roof on the house, increasing the value by $40,000. Congratulations, here's your new tax bill. That's the real purpose of the permits.
And that's how New York State gets around whenever they say, oh, we're not raising any new taxes, but there's a hell of a lot of new fees. They create new fees instead of creating new taxes to get the same result. More money for the state to spend.
When Pete Sommer's on the show next time, you guys have any question about permits, talk to Peter. He is a nationally renowned permitting and construction expert. He knows everything, the ins and outs of how all that stuff gets it. But yeah, Joanna, the whole driver's licenses thing, I understand where they're getting at it, saying they're public roads. You don't have a right to drive on. You have a right to travel on the roads, but you don't have a right to drive on the roads. It's a different.
And that
you can ride a horse
or a bicycle,
providing that there's a bicycle lane, because they'll tell you can't ride a bicycle over a bridge or motorway that doesn't have a bike lane on it.
I want to. Driver's licenses didn't start in existence until 1903.
Right.
Okay. Cars have been around for quite a while prior to that. Now, there have been multiple Supreme Court rulings validating that driver's licenses were constitutional based upon public safety. Okay.
It's an argument.
I don't know that I buy that, because it doesn't say anywhere in the Constitution that public safety can be a causation for the violation of rights.
I believe the argument is that as a union of individuals, a society, we agree to suspend certain rights for the overall greater good when the need of the society is so great versus the loss of the individual right being so little. That's the idea. Yeah. That's the idea behind most laws.
But I'll give you an example of why driver's licenses are bullshit. 18-wheelers. All right.
Yeah.
Every time you have a commercial driver's license, right? Your commercial driver's license is dependent upon what class of vehicle you will be operating. And your CDL is going to start with 2-axle vehicles of a certain weight, 3-axle vehicles of a certain weight, 4 or 5 trailered vehicles and everything else. And then you get into 18-wheelers. Now, I'm sure you guys have been on a highway when you see one of these piggyback trucks go by.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've got a tractor pulling 3 25 or 20-foot trailers, and you've got like 30 axle, 30 wheels on this damn thing. And you've got a truck that weighs God knows how many tons upon tons upon tons. And you got 18-wheelers and you're and everything else. But you have to go to class, you have to get certified, you have to get drug tests, eye tests. Mike's got a CDL, you drive that truck, you know what I'm talking about. You got to have certain criteria you got to meet to do that. Mm-hmm. You're limited with how many miles you can drive, how many hours you can drive. You got weigh stations, all different stuff. Your brakes have to be a certain temperature, mileage, all of this silly shit. Go buy a Class C motorhome that's made on the same chassis as a Greyhound bus, and then strap a 30-foot trailer on the back of it with a tow car in behind that thing, and there's no requirement needed for that.
No, regular driver's license.
Regular driver's license. But if you want to go get yourself a Harley Davidson Sportster 883 and drive that around town, you have to get a motorcycle license for that.
Yeah, totally separate license.
Yeah, you have to get a totally separate license for a motorcycle, totally separate license for a car. And you get one of those Can-Am Spiders? Well, that's a different kind of modification you need for your driver's license.
Well,
Specialized vehicle. I used to sell auto insurance.
Here's my thing.
No license.
Okay.
21st century.
So they have ruled that driver's licenses, because of the need of public safety, are constitutional. And that is exactly the reasoning behind why so many people are pushing for gun legislation. It's because it is deemed critical to public safety.
I don't agree with that. That argument doesn't make any sense, because gun control doesn't equal safety.
No, it doesn't. Okay?
So you can't make the argument.
Again, that's where you get, the requirement for a certain number of hours of classes, the requirement for licensure, the requirement for this, that, and the other.
Obstacles to prevent you from being able to execute your right. It's the same thing as having a reading tax before you can go vote. It's an obstacle is meant to prevent you, or to discourage you at the least, from exercising your right. This is from Jim Crow. It's the same concept.
And that's also where I come up with the driving license. Also, licensing drivers really is more of a revenue vehicle than it is, in my opinion, a public safety thing.
Well, we got lots of unsafe drivers, and they got licenses.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like I said,
it is a revenue builder for the state.
Yeah. Like I said, no one cared about me riding my motorcycle for 4 years until I got hit by a car. Then was the only time that they ever asked me about, do you have a license? No one cared. Why? Because I wasn't in accidents. I wasn't causing accidents. No one had a problem. I knew how to ride my motorcycle. Which was also trying. That was a story. Learning how to ride the motorcycle. That was kind of funny, but I don't recommend the way I did it. It's a story all its own. Maybe I'll tell people about that tomorrow, but that's another thing. Once we start getting into these things of the government's going to protect you, we start getting into really, because it's such a vague language. And when you start thinking about all the consequences that go with that, it really starts scaring me a lot. And yeah, I see that.
Just for point of reference, that thing on the
form by identification has nothing to do with driving. I can partially agree with that, James. But you can get a state ID without a driver's license.
Which I have.
Okay. Michael's got a state ID, not a driver's license.
Yeah.
Okay. You have an ID in your Social Security card.
Although it says your Social Security card is not to be considered a valid form of identification.
True.
It's used for everything.
But it is. It was never intended to be, and it was never supposed to be, but it is.
It's printed on the card.
Yeah, but
that's how we get identified. And just for point of reference,
James,
that on the screen, that's a provost motorhome with a 24-foot trailer on the back of it, there is no special license required to drive that.
No. James,
That's
state
longer
ID
than-
makes suspects employers won't hire you. Again, this is something that has been perpetrated in our society due to the licensing that started up in the early 1900s. Okay. It actually has nothing to do with employers not hiring you or not. It is something that they have worked towards that. Okay. It's just like if you don't give your social security number to your employer, then they again give you grief. Okay. It's because it has become a part of our society. Not that it is right, but it is what has happened.
True. Speaking of things that have been happening, even though they're not right, did you guys see the report earlier this week? I know it's getting a little late, but I wanted to make sure I cover it. Did you hear about this week, the 15-year scientific study that just came out from the Netherlands? Okay, from your faces, it looks like no, you didn't. So I'm going to assume you have not. And I think most people in America have not heard about this. We just found out about it this week. Just the report came out. Everyone's been able to read it this week. So the Netherlands did a 15-year study with kids from the ages of 11 and followed them until they were 26. And they asked those kids about their gender conformity.
Yes.
About non-conformity and conformity. In other words, they asked them about being trans. They asked them, do you enjoy being your biological sex, or do you want to be some other sex? From 11, and they asked them several times throughout their life. So they had about every 2 years, they asked them again, where do you stand? How do you feel? Whoops. And of course, my camera dies when I'm doing this now. So they asked them every 2 years, where are you on this? You know, do you feel like you're a boy? Do you feel like you're a girl? Whatever, where are you? And they kept doing that. And as it turns out, 98% by the time they got done with the entire study, 2,700 individuals, 98% are. Now, I actually went to the study. I've actually read the study itself. 98% say they are perfectly fine being biologically whatever they are. Only 2% said they weren't. In general, throughout the entire testing, the only people they found, it seemed to be, the study says that if you are a woman with emotional issues and or mental issues with low self-esteem and you're bi or gay, then you probably will be part of the 2% who actually want to be trans. This is according to this study. Now, taking that out, I find it interesting that the science, these people running around screaming about the science, believe the science is everything. How dare you question the science? This study confirms a study from Taiwan in 1987, which said that 87% of all of the people they asked said the same thing. There was a study in the United States of 10-year-olds between the ages of 10 and 16 said the same thing, 90% there. And now we have this one that says 98%. You know, where's all those people who are saying, don't be a science denier? The science says that we should not be gender affirming children leave the children alone. Notice the news media didn't want to talk about that because all the gender affirming laws, according to the science, says they are wrong and that they are harming children. But they don't want to talk about that. That didn't hit United States prime time, did it now? And I actually read the report. And I know there's people who are going to say, but Mike, you're not a scientist. I can read. I don't need to be a scientist to read the results of the study. I didn't commit the study. Scientists did. And the scientists came up with the answers.
Yeah, but dude, those scientists were like biased and stuff.
Yeah, the scientists in Taiwan and America and in the Netherlands who are totally independent in their universities. Yeah, universities are known for being so right wing.
Well, that's the problem. That's because they were independent. They weren't swayed by politics to give the correct information.
I just find it so interesting, and it's kind of sad that we have. This is at the same time that states are trying to convince us that we have to have more gender affirmation. We need blind affirmation.
That's just the term of that. Gender affirmation. Affirmation means to what? Confirm.
Confirm, accept, yes.
Confirm. I'm going to confirm it. Gender affirmation does the exact, it's saying the exact opposite. Gender affirmation to sexuality is what Planned Parenthood is to birth control. It means the absolute opposite thing. It means the absolute. Oh, I'm sending my kid to gender affirmation.
If you do a search,
the doctor goes, "Were you born a boy?" Yeah, because you're a boy. I affirmed it for you. You're a boy. Get out. Next. Get the next one in here. Oh, I'm going to Planned Parenthood. Why? Well, because I got pregnant. Did you plan it? No. Then you're going to Unplanned Parenthood.
Yeah, there's the funny part. But and by the way, I want to be very clear here. The problem we're talking about is children. You want to talk about adults doing whatever adults want to do. I don't care. That's not a conversation I need. No one needs to. Don't ask me for the money. But what we're talking about and what this study is about is gender affirmation of children.
Well,
let's get that right.
Well, speaking of the Netherlands and speaking of adults, I saw it earlier. It's on the other computer, so I can't get it over into this one. There's a young woman in the Netherlands who, on Monday, 26 years old. She has no physical ailments whatsoever. She's in perfect health. Pretty young girl, 24, 26 years old, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He suffers from depression and anxiety and ADHD, which is bullshit anyway, because the guy who coined the term and found it, he even said it's not really real. And borderline personality disorder. She applied for and was approved for euthanasia.
Oh, I heard about that. That's in Canada. No, yeah, she's scheduled to be terminated in Canada.
Yeah, it's the Netherlands.
Is it Netherlands? I thought it was in Canada.
Okay. I think it was carried by the Canadian news.
That might be it. Okay.
But she's in the Netherlands.
Yeah, Grace is saying it's Netherlands.
Yeah, pretty girl, strawberry blonde, beautiful face, pretty girl. Got the whole world ahead of her, and nobody there to love her enough to help her, because doctors there have told her there's nothing more we can do to treat your condition. So they've affirmed to this young woman that she's never going to find happiness. She's never going to have mental stability. She's never going to. They did to this young woman what they're doing to these children, and convincing them that there's no help for them except to change into something that they're not. Well, they're changing this young woman into something that she's not. Dead. They're changing her from alive to dead because nobody gives a shit enough to be honest with her and tell her, you know what? Sometimes life sucks, and sometimes you get depressed, sometimes you get sad, and you know what? It happens to everybody, and we deal with it. Nobody in her family gives enough of a shit. Nobody, none of her friends give enough of a shit. This woman's got pets. If you can't live enough for your friggin' pets, take care of your dogs, your cats, your bird, your fish, your lizard, whatever. Nobody gives a shit enough to save this woman's life. And nobody gives a shit in this country enough. All of these parents who think that it's because it's the in thing to say, oh, my kid's transitioning, my kid's fluid, my kid, you try to score points at your boba cafe with your leftist friends to find out which one of your kids fits more into how many different victim pools, because you think that gets you social credit. You're destroying your children. You're destroying your legacy. You're destroying the future of America. And for all of these celebrities out there that change the world with their music and their poetry and their skill and their talent, and they all think that it's great, that destroying these young lives is great. It's great. You were one of those young people at one point too. And if somebody would have destroyed you, the world would have been denied your skill and your talent. But now you're willing to have somebody else have their skill, their talent, everything that they could possibly be. Deny the world them. So the world will never know who that person was. But they know who you were, and that's fine. But you're never going to give somebody else that opportunity. And the world is a freaking worse off place for it. World's a worse off place. And the people in the Netherlands who are going to administer that needle to that young woman, I hope you all burn in fucking hell. I swear to God.
You know what's crazy about this? I just was doing some research on this. They've been doing this since at least 2017. In 2017, they had 83 of these they call it voluntary euthanasias, otherwise known as government suicides. And in 2018, there was another 28-year-old young woman. These are all people with mental distress that governments are saying, sure, we'll give you an injection and take you away forever. And now they're doing it in 20. That's insane that they have been doing this since 2000. That's 7 years at least. I just found the article from the BBC. It wasn't in an American newspaper. You can't find it in American newspapers. The BBC. This is what does Netherlands have? Government health care. Gee, the government. Dude, is there a connection there? Maybe. Government says, hey, I mean, sure, you can self-terminate. They'll be more than happy, even when you're in the prime of your life.
I mean, this thing. I mean, you're 90 years old. You got stage 4 lung and throat cancer. You got brain cancer. Every minute of your life is an exhausting amount of indescribable pain, and you can't stand it no more. But your heart is still strong enough to keep pumping blood, and you want to go. I understand. Believe me, I've watched people that I cared so deeply about suffer some of the most indignified deaths that you could possibly have because they didn't have the option of ending it. They willed themselves to die because they didn't have an option. But when you're somebody who is healthy and you can't muster up enough courage to look for another sunrise and see the beauty in another day.
Well, we need to look this another way too. Okay. Up in Canada, they have governmental health care, which means that the big pharma isn't in as much control. Down here in the United States, big pharma is in more control. So why do you think that they put Dr. Jack Kevorkian in jail when he is trying to assist people who had no hopes of living much longer, were in extreme pain. And because Kevorkian was trying to assist them, he was jailed. As because if he ended their lives early, the pharmacies weren't going to be able to sell as many drugs to them in order to keep them alive longer and in misery longer.
Well, everything is an almighty dollar, and like I said, these countries with the government health care, if they can kill you off early, well, Canada says we recommend that you just go into, stop taking medications. They want you to die early if you've got something terminal or something that's going to require long-term or palliative care, for a period of time. They would rather you off yourself because you're not going to cost them the money. They would rather you do that. And I guess when they look at all these people with the transitional bullshit, they would rather pay for the transitional stuff, knowing that you're never going to reproduce again. And at least the line of insanity ends with you.
Well, yes, but it makes no sense. I mean, this
And
girl,
then you kill yourself.
well, this girl has a boyfriend, the 28-year-old.
Yeah.
She's got a boyfriend who supposedly is, obviously he doesn't love her. He obviously doesn't, because he's all for this. He's all with this. I don't understand that. Netherlands started doing this and doing some research, 2001. They have thousands of people that they do this to, euthanize. And there is a growing number of people, young people, that they are euthanizing because the kids don't feel well. They don't have, some have mental disorders. They're giving up on life. And rather than helping these kids to find purpose in their life, rather than the people around them trying to give them purpose and meaning in their life, the government is again willing to destroy that life. Just like we're seeing with our government willing to destroy young children before they even start their lives by chopping off their genitals.
Well, the Netherlands came out a year and a half ago and made the wonderful proclamation that they are the first nation in the world that has been able to eradicate Down syndrome. They've been able to fix Down syndrome.
Well, that's because they kill everyone who has it.
Because everybody who has Down syndrome, they get diagnosed in the womb, they encourage that the kid gets aborted.
Which I don't agree with. That's so evil. That's so evil.
They encourage that it gets, so now that they have zero Down syndrome birth rate in the Netherlands, because they encourage, and now it's one of the prenatal tests that they give. That's mandated now. They test to make sure the kid does, if he's got Down syndrome or not. And then if the kid's got Down syndrome, they do everything in their power to encourage the parent to end that pregnancy. And if the parents don't want to end the pregnancy, they'll encourage them to move to another country.
That's just evil.
Right.
That's just evil. That is evil. It's as evil as what we're talking about.
Yes, Grace. It's called eugenics.
Yeah, and it is a very old. That's where Planned Parenthood came from.
Right, and it's exactly the same. Margaret Sanger. This was her belief. This was she wanted to get rid of the weeds of the world by exterminating. That's why most Planned Parenthoods are in Black communities, are in poorer communities. You're not going to go down to Rodeo Drive and find a Planned Parenthood, next door to where they sell Fabergé friggin' eggs.
No, they're in cities, and they're in the poor parts of the cities that inevitably have the highest minority populations, because they were planned that way. They were built specifically to be in those neighborhoods. That's from Planned Parenthood themselves. It's part of what Sanger's creation, her founding principles was to eliminate minorities by putting a Planned Parenthood in easy access to their communities. It's part of the eugenics plan.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, certain communities in our country are all but willing to go along with the plan and then condemn the people who are against it.
Mhm.
So, what are you going to do? Listen, guys, I'm going to jump out of here. I hear dogs' nails tapping on the floor in the kitchen, telling me that it's time for them to go outside.
Well, I got to go a little bit too, because and tomorrow is my birthday. People may not know that, and I do a marathon for my birthday. So starting at 9 o'clock, I have a 12-hour show to do straight.
And can we ask what numerical figure you'll be achieving tomorrow?
Sure, I'll be 56.
56.
Ah, you're a youngin'.
Be jealous, people. You can only hope you can look as good as me.
Yeah,
at
I was going
56.
to say, you're 56. You look pretty damn good.
You're a youngin'.
Yeah.
That's all right. I'm happy with that.
We're
I can
gonna.
live with that.
I think I'm the oldest one on this panel.
Not that much older, man. You got me by what? 3 years?
3 years.
Yeah.
4 years.
Well,
4
I'm
years
gonna-
in September.
Well, I'm gonna stop by on your show tomorrow while you're in the middle of your marathon, and
I'll pop in a few times.
Yeah.
We
well,
will try to present you with a non-copywritten version of the birthday song, so that we don't have to worry about you getting flagged or in trouble by the censors.
I'm sure somewhere it's me talking for 12 hours straight, answering people's questions about politics. I am absolutely sure it's going to get flagged somewhere along the line. As long as they don't end the stream, I don't care. But they may try and end the stream. 9 out of 10, knowing them. But it should be fun.
Well, in 44 minutes, put one hand on each one of your shoulders and give yourself a good squeeze. That's a hug from me and my buddy half, saying happy birthday, Mike. We love you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. I'm going to get out of here. You guys be safe, shoot straight. We'll catch you next week when Mike is another year older and I'm another week fatter and Marshall is another week doing whatever the hell he's doing.
I'm another week baller.
There you go.
I didn't want to go.
I was going there. I was waiting for it.
I'll let you do that. Hey, everybody in the audience, again, thank you very, 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 very much for joining us this week. We really do appreciate it. I'm going to leave these guys up here to wrap up the show and talk about whatever they're doing. But as always, you guys all be safe and shoot straight.
All right, Frank.
Good night.
Well, since Michael does have his marathon broadcast tomorrow, and Michael, why don't you tell everybody where they can find that at?
It's on No Soundbites Allowed. You can go on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Twitter, DLive. I'm on most of the social media. And it's just No Soundbites. It's kind of like, see, right? No Soundbites Allowed with an I. And just drop on in, ask any question that you want. I'll try and put in one or two surprises throughout the day for people, but so it's ask me anything personal as well as any political topic over the last 40 years. I can pretty reasonably discuss, some better than others, but pretty much anything that's been in politics over the last 4 decades, I can talk about. Pretty wide range.
Well, like I said, I will be popping in probably a few times throughout the day, just say hi and see how everything's going.
Yeah.
With that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this week's edition because Michael does have a long day tomorrow, and we're just, even though we haven't ran out of things to talk about,
oh no,
it's getting late. So with that, as I demonstrated earlier, our country is woefully ignorant on the Constitution. And that's where the Liberty First Foundation comes in. There are other organizations as well, but the Liberty First Foundation is striving to educate the American citizen about the importance of the Constitution and so that they know what our government is technically allowed and not allowed to do. Okay. Too many people believe that our government has a lot more authority than what is detailed in the Constitution. We need to end that. That is what's robbing us from our freedoms. Okay. You can find a lot more information about the Liberty First Foundation through our website at l1f.us. And you can also become a membership or a member of the Liberty First Foundation, which will help us get the word out and help us in teaching people about the Constitution. Now, as we gain more members and so forth, we start getting a larger voice. The larger our voice gets, the more impact that we will have when it comes to these political policies that are affecting all of us. So we do urge you to become a member of the Liberty First Foundation. Also, the money that we get from your membership goes to our efforts to educate people about the Constitution and about how our government is overreaching its authority. With that, we're going to go ahead and say goodnight. We're here every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We are going to be working on trying to get some other platforms going as well, but those are the ones that we can get going pretty consistently. With that, we'll see you all next week. Thank you, everybody.